Welcome to today's investor webinar. My name is Daniel from JP Equity. Thank you all for registering today, and I'm looking forward to hearing what the exciting roadmap looks like for Gateway Mining. We are pleased to be joined by Managing Director Mark Cossom. Earlier this year, Mark transferred from Executive Technical Director to Managing Director. Mark is a geologist and mining executive with over 24 years experience with a very broad background in gold exploration and mining. Having worked with Mark recently, he has strong economic evaluation skills and corporate management experience. He has held several mining executive and senior operational positions, which he can tell us about. Please welcome Mark to present.
Thanks, Dan, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks for that. Obviously, JP Equity have been involved here for 3 years, and happy to continue following this one. So we are looking forward to seeing the presentation today. If you want to pull that up.
There we go. Okay, so thanks, Dan, and this is our investor presentation. Thanks everyone again for joining us. So you sort of touched on my background before, and just thought I'd sort of introduce it a little bit more. And prior to Gateway, I was with Doré Minerals for about 9 years. So almost from the IPO, not quite the IPO, all the way through to takeover by Silver Lake Mining in 2019. So that experience was great for me, part of a team that found and then evaluated and constructed 2 gold mines, generated a company that at one point was producing over 200,000 ounces a year, through to it was ASX 200 gold company till its takeover by Silver Lake. So that was fantastic experience. Then prior to Doré, I spent about 10 years with one of the South African majors, Harmony Gold, mainly around Kalgoorlie, the South Kal operations, then also up in PNG, some big mining and exploration projects up there, including the Wafi-Golpu discovery. So, bit of a broad background in mining and exploration, both small scale companies and large scale companies. When I come out of Doré, I was really looking for what do I want to do? What do I want to do next? And I had sort of 3 criteria I was mainly looking for, and that was obviously, I wanted to get back into a small company and help build it, but a company with a great project. Really had to be a proper project with good potential. I want to be a company with great people involved, and have that sort of that backbone of really competent and driven people. And the third was a company that had a good supportive shareholder base. And looking at different options, and then Gateway come along, and it really ticked all those boxes, and hopefully I'll be able to show you now why that is the case. But so Gateway now, really is focused on the Gidgee project, which is a pretty strategically important project north of Perth, north of Sandstone in the WA Archean goldfields. And one of the things I suppose about the company Gateway is it's been around for a while, and previously was focused on the East Coast, and really had a couple of tenements over here around Gidgee. In 2017, 2018, the company was recapitalised and refocused on Gidgee, and the other projects were divested over time, which has actually ended up with us having this sort of bit of a pretty strategic shareholding in some other junior explorers. But now we're completely focused on the Gidgee project, which is 1,000 square kilometres, really big project, great part of WA. We've got some existing resources, which is really some remnants under 2 of 5 open pits that were mined here in the 1980s up until 1993 by Herald Resources. So a different company. Gateway started to get involved and has built that tenement portfolio over there. And one of the important things that we've done is, by looking at those resources and the mineralisation around the open pits, we've really started to, particularly in the last 18 months, really started to put together the geology and use that to find new gold deposits away from these old mined open pits. And that's really the exciting path forward for the company. So one of the key things we've been able to do, particularly the last 12 months, we did a pretty big capital raising last year, and that's enabled us to just go and systematically drill and do the work that needs to be done to build this resource base, to keep adding these new resource areas to our pipeline. We haven't necessarily been out there chasing the real high profile intersections, not looking for the next capital raising all the time, but really just going out there, doing the groundwork, doing what needs to be done to grow that resource base for the company. And this is our strategy that we're keen to pursue here at Gidgee. You can see where we are in the orange. The biggest landholder in the region. This is a part of WA, been mined historically. You can see Horizon Gold in blue in the middle there with their Gum Creek project, but out to the west of us, we've got West Gold and Ramelius, and out east of us, we've got Walloona Mining, Bellevue and Goldfields with their Agnew Lawlers. But this part of the sandstone Gidgee belt, it's historically important gold producing area, but it hasn't been really explored or thought about for the best part of 20 years. And we've got a great land position there. So what we're doing, we're focusing in a couple of different areas, but really we've got our existing resources and the old 5 open pits that were mined there in the late 80s, early 90s. We've been doing some work around them. We're also systematically exploring, taking the knowledge from those open pits and applying them elsewhere, but importantly, keeping within this 5-kilometre radius of those resources. So we're still, even though it's a big land package we've got there, we're still focused within a relatively concise area. And then we're continuing to develop these new targets, adding to this pipeline of systematically growing our resource base through bringing these various targets, testing them, putting resources around them and adding them to the overall project inventory. And that's what we'll continue to do over time. So where we are, this is our main focus, the Montague granodiorite, which is that pink rock in the middle there. You can see the position of our 2 existing resources at Whistler and Montague Boulder. They're 2 of the bigger open pits that were mined historically, 120,000 ounce resources under them at the moment. But importantly, all these other targets, there's a lot of different names we talk about, a lot of different prospects, but they're all within 5 kilometres of each other. And that's a pretty key point. And one of the other things to note there is you can see a lot of the drilling and where the gold has been found to date on that northwestern side of that Montague granodiorite. Well, the eastern side and that southeastern portion, the Kashmir target we'll go through later, that's basically unexplored. And that's really exciting going forward. That's 9 kilometres on that side of the granodiorite that really is open. So longer term, that's a pretty important focus for us. And again, just sort of want to emphasise that where we're looking, these things are all within 5 kilometres of each other. So our strategy to build the resource. So we've got our existing resources, Montague, Boulder, and Whistler. Been doing a bit more work there to flesh them out and to grow them, and we're in the process of re-estimating them, which will be part of our project-wide resource update. We've then been developing these new targets, these new resource areas at Evermore, Achilles North and Airport, these oxide deposits, and we're working through maiden resource estimates for them at the moment. And then importantly, we're continuing to add to these targets. We're developing this pipeline of targets and bringing them forward. And in the short term, we're focusing on some of these ones like Julia's and Plymouth, which we talked about today, and Monarch and Kashmir. And then longer term, we've got a whole series of these pretty exciting targets to bring forward and keep adding to this pipeline of resource growth. So just quickly looking at where these next upgrades to the resource statement are going to come from, and really we're looking at Evermore, new discovery, and Montague Boulder, upgrading our existing resource there, and then Achilles North and Airport, these oxide deposits to the south. But one of the key things to emphasise over the last 12 months, 18 months, been able to just systematically drill, get the data together to develop these targets and bring them into the resource update, and not necessarily chasing the real high profile results, but just doing the work that needs to be done. So Montague, 120,000 ounce inferred resource there. We put about 5,000 metres into it, and just been looking to extend it along strike. We've also been upgrading those high grade zones within the existing resource, and also able to show that below the existing resource there was repeats of this structure there as well. So again, just doing the work, systematically drilling, finding gold around the margins and below, and enabling us to keep adding to this resource, which will come out in our upgrade in the December quarter. Evermore, this was a new discovery that we made about October last year. This was taking the knowledge we got out of Montague Boulder. This is immediately along strike to the north of Montague Boulder. We just followed that structure where we thought that the historic drilling hadn't tested it properly, and lo and behold, we found the mineralisation was there. You can see with that diagram, we've drilled it out over about 800 metres of strike, particularly that northern 400 metres. It's been drilled on about a 40 by 40 metre drill pattern. It's about 80 by 100 down to the south there. But again, just doing that systematic drilling, developing the data that we needed to put a maiden resource estimate over this new discovery that had seen no historic mining. This is 1.5 kilometres north of Montague Boulder. And importantly, what it demonstrates is that away from these old pits, there's still a lot of gold to be found here at around the Montague Granodiorite and at the Gidgee project in general. Another new resource that we're working on at the moment is at Achilles North. So this is a fair bit of drilling that was done by Gateway in 2019 and 2020, immediately along strike of that little rosy open pit we can see there. We've drilled out pretty systematically the 400 metres immediately north of that rosy pit. That rosy pit was a little oxide pit mined in 1992 by Herald. We've just continued to chase that oxide zone along strike. And then we just recently finished doing some RC drilling. I spoke about it earlier. The next sort of 250, 300 metres north of that drill pattern, systematically drilling it again to enable us to put this maiden resource estimate around Achilles North. It's an oxide resource. You can see from some of those intersections, it basically starts from below surface, and having these oxide resources as part of our inventory is strategically pretty important. There's not a lot of them left in WA. Most of them been mined. So, having these oxide resources here, and then Airport we'll talk about next, from an overall point of view, that's it's pretty key for the company. Airport, just a little bit further to the south of Achilles North. This was based on some drilling done by Gateway back in 2002. Again, little oxide deposit, 20 to 30 metres below surface, some great grades. Importantly, we think it might be offset to the north and to the south by some faults. We've done a little bit of drilling recently to test that. We're waiting on the results there, but again, an oxide resource, granted mining lease, just systematically building this resource base, and this will be added to the project resource inventory in the December quarter. But what are the next steps in this strategy? What are we doing to continue to add these targets, adding to this resource base over time? And the next couple of important areas for us as a company are Kashmir and Monarch. Again, within 5 kilometres of our existing resources, just systematically going through this process of developing these targets and doing the work that needs to be done. So Kashmir, this is immediately along strike of Horizon Gold's Howard's deposit. You can see down there the bottom of that diagram and where our tenement boundary sits. This is a big soil anomaly. There's basically no work that's been done on this eastern side of the granodiorite. You can see that pink rock. So all our work to date up on the western side, eastern side. Horizon Gold have this 200,000 ounce Howard's deposit. We did the work that showed that there was indications of mineralisation along strike. We've drilled 2 1 kilometre spaced RC drill traverses there and intersected high-grade gold in the shear zone, in the mafics, similar to what Howard's has got, showing that the mineralisation continues on that eastern side. And we'll come back there later in November, early December, and do some further work there to start exploring this in a bit more detail. But it's pretty exciting for us because it opens up that whole eastern side of the granodiorite, which has pretty much not been explored. And, just to give an indication, Horizon recently put out some results there at Howard's. You can see there the type of mineralisation they're getting at Howard's, which is unmined. It's still sitting there basically from surface, big thick zones of mineralisation, and there's just a tenement boundary in the way, and we're going to keep exploring that to the north. The other target we're getting pretty excited about, the next generation of targets, is Monarch. This is just to the east of Kashmir. This is an area that's slightly different rocks, but it's a heap of historic underground mining has gone on out there in the 1930s, pretty extensive mining. And then amazingly, when we started looking back through the exploration that's been done in the past out here, there's only been 5 shallow, about 40 metre deep RC holes drilled by Herald Resources in 1985. And those 5 holes drilled all around the old shafts all hit mineralisation, plus 1 gram per tonne mineralisation. We went and did some soil sampling out there and showed there's a big anomaly over nearly 6 kilometres in this geological position. And the guys, when they went out there doing the soil sampling, having a look around, they can see that took some rock chip samples. There's nearly 19 grams per tonne in quartz veining at surface outcropping. So, this is pretty exciting for us. There's basically been no exploration out here. There's definitely a lot of gold. You can see, with the amount of historic underground mining that's been going on out there, there's a substantial amount of gold, and this is a great target for us. So we're building this up. We've done a bit more infill soil sampling to define best place to put our drill holes, but we're building this up as to get drilled in the coming months. So bigger picture, what's to come for Gateway? Well, in terms of our news flow, I mentioned before, we've just done this 22,000 metre air core program. We're waiting on a lot of the samples from that. We put the first lot out today from Plymouth. You can see there on that diagram. We did some other drilling at Julia's, again, within this 5 kilometre radius, and a bit of work extending that Achilles corridor towards the tenement boundary. We've got some RC drilling that we've only recently completed at Achilles North, and also just testing the northern extents of Evermore. Those samples are in the lab. We're waiting for them to be returned. It looks like the assay turnaround issues that have been plaguing particularly the WA exploration industry all of this year are getting a bit better. We're still seeing delays, but they seem to be getting a bit shorter. So hopefully that time to turn those around will get shorter and shorter. But again, we're just continuing to systematically test these targets within the 5 kilometre radius of our resources. The upgrade of our resource inventory is underway, and that'll be released in the December quarter, in this current quarter, but in the coming months. But beyond that, I mentioned before, it's a big land package. There's a lot of gold in this area. We're the biggest landholder in this greenstone belt. And just to put that into perspective, where we've been talking about to date around Montague, the Montague Granadora, that's in that little yellow box there. So you can see our tenement package. There's a lot of gold being historically found in the area, and pretty prospective areas for us to go to. And we've got a series of these targets that are already developed for us to keep working through over the next 12 months and bringing these through as part of our overall strategy to keep developing these new resource prospects, testing them, bring them into the resource inventory, and building up our overall resource package over time. So in summary, Gateway market cap around $36 million at the moment. At the end of June, we had just under $3.6 million in cash. And I mentioned before, this share portfolio we'd built up in these other juniors through our divestment strategy. That was worth just under $1.5 million at the end of June. That's a pretty key little buffer for us to have. Importantly for Gateway, we've got a really good, strong and supportive set of major shareholders. You can see in that shareholder list, our top 20 accounts for 40% of our register. Kerry Hermanis there, our major shareholder, with just over 12%. Kerry coming on the recapitalisation of the company back in 2018 and has continued to build his shareholding over time. And the directors there, we can see with 13.5% of the company, they're engaged and definitely aligned with the fortunes of the company going forward, and motivated to really maximise it for shareholders. Our board, I mentioned before, my own background, pretty diverse skill set on the board, and you can see there Deb Fullerton, who's currently the CEO of Westgold as well, which is pretty important in the region. The other guy there, Pete Langworthy, he's been involved with the company for a number of years. Very experienced geologist, successful track record with building junior companies and really creating value for shareholders. And Pete's involved with us, helping on a technical level. He's excited by the project and really can see the future for the project going forward. So what's the key takeaways for Gateway? Well, really, Gateway is this major Gidgee project. It's a great location. The goldfields, Archean goldfields of WA, which from a global point of view is a tier 1 place to be looking. Really good place to be exploring for gold. We've got existing resources under 2 of these old open pits, but we've been doing the work, building our resource inventory, and going to keep adding to that resource base. We've got an upgrade coming in this current quarter, but but we've got this pipeline of targets which we can keep adding to, and over time we're just going to systematically drill and test these targets and bring them into the resource inventory. Keep adding to this resource inventory over time, building it up. And one of the key things for the company too is it's, you know, the management team. We've been involved in discoveries. We've been involved in growing junior companies. You know, really creating wealth and value for shareholders, and you know, we know how to do this, and really see the potential for Gateway, and are motivated to take this company forward. So on that note, thanks Daniel, and happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thanks Mark, and thanks everyone for joining and listening today. We do have a live question box there as well if anyone wants to ask anything. We do have some questions that have come in, Mark.
Yep.
And firstly, just from my observation, you guys look like you do have one of the larger land holdings in a pretty topical land, you know. So plenty going. First, which leads to the first question, the methodical work to date, credit on that. Investors just want to hear the strategy to monetize the resource base, and what's it look like?
Yeah, look, I suppose our strategy there is to, you know, with our current resources and what we've got, it's not quite big enough to start, you know, proper open cut mining or underground mining. But really what we're looking to do is to keep building our resource base, the project up into something that's strategically, you know, an important resource base in the area, but a major resource base in the area. So our key strategy at the moment is to really keep building it. We can see the potential to build these resources up. You know, at the moment, we don't quite have the critical mass to enable mining to commence, but we can see the potential in the area. If we just go and do the work, we can get there and really be in a key position to take the project forward. So that, you know, the short term, we're not looking to go and start, you know, just ripping stuff out of the ground. That can be detrimental to the project overall when you start doing that. But yeah, we can really see the value that we can add, and enable us to get to a point in the future where we can, you know, look to evaluate the monetization of this project.
Yeah, okay. So that sort of leads to the next sort of couple of questions. I'll try and bunch as many together as I can.
Yep.
You know, has scoping work been undertaken, or what do you determine as enough resources in the right job category, you know, to maybe one day push the button on development?
Yeah, look, we haven't undertaken any sort of formal scoping studies or the like on the project yet. We're still a little way off that, but I suppose in terms of rule of thumb in WA goldfields, and you know, obviously from my past experience, really what you're looking to do is to get to a resource base of minimum about 1 million ounces. You know, if you look at a 70% conversion rate of that from resource to reserve, that's about 700,000 ounces, and that really equates to, you know, about 100,000 ounce per year production over 7 years, and that's really where, you know, we're aiming to get to from a you know, a project point of view. So while we haven't done the work, that's, you know, sort of rule of thumb type work in WA. That's what we can see as potential and where to head for.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that. Next one, you probably get this all the time, I think, when you go around to conferences and stuff like that. Has there been much of a discussion with Horizon around, like, say, potential joint development? You know, you touched on your next sort of target, Kashmir, down there, where they've just had some good results. So, yeah, everyone wants to know if you had any conversations with them.
We talked to the guys at Horizon. Obviously, we're right next door, and we do have regular communications with them on an operational level in terms of logistics and infrastructure and things like that, you know, from exploration point of view. But, you know, where they're at, and obviously where we're at the moment, you know, they're not really, in terms of their own strategy, I don't think they're looking to start development in the immediate future. They're doing some work on their project, and we're looking to obviously build our own resource base up. So we haven't had those sorts of discussions on development options. Obviously, the projects are right next to each other, and there's a lot of resources within a smallish area. So there's obvious potential there going forward. But no, we sort of haven't had those discussions, and the two companies probably are not quite at those points in their pathway at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Plenty of success around the older pits. Do you think there might be, I guess, an accelerated drill program on the cards?
In terms of around the open pits?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's one of the things. Most of the work historically has focused around those old open pits, and hence why there's a lot of results around them. But really what I think from our point of view, what we're excited about is particularly the last 12 months at Evermore and Achilles North, we've been able to show that there's a lot of gold still to be found away from those old open pits. A lot of the work was focused there in the past purely because it was the straightforward thing to do, and that I suppose the easiest thing to do is to go and drill under the old open pits. We still are going to be doing some work evaluating under those old open pits for sure, but where we see the big potential going forward is to find new deposits around from those old open pits, which really adds to the overall story and really enables us to grow the project over time, and that's where we see the real pathway going forward. So that will be our focus. We will still do some work around those old open pits, but definitely think that there's more to be found.
All right. Thanks for that. Next question I got here. What's your highest priority drilling target? And when do you think you'll get to work on that? What sort of interests you most at the moment?
Well, definitely, I suppose we've just recently completed that bit of resource drilling north of Achilles, and that was our highest priority up until a couple of weeks ago, which is now done. That was to get the Achilles North resource estimate bedded down. But so beyond that, really, as I mentioned in our presentation, it's that Kashmir immediate along strike from Howards. We've already got some work we've done there previously showing that the mineralisation is there in the rocks. So we're pretty excited about Kashmir and then Monarch, as we talked about before. And I'll just go back and just to remind everyone where they are. This one here. So really Monarch and Kashmir, still within this 5 kilometre radius, but they're newer targets. Kashmir in particular, if we can open up that eastern side of the Granadora, there's huge potential there. And Monarch, this new target, and as I said, amazingly has had really not much historic exploration at all. So they're our two next cabs off the rank, if you like. Yep. Okay,
so you think potentially this year work on that?
Yeah, at this stage we're penciling in a rig at late November, early December to get out there and do some RC drilling out there.
Awesome. That'll be good to look forward to. Obviously, we get these types of questions a lot, and exploration. You're spending money. How is the budget tracking?
Yeah. So our budgets, we're slightly beating our budget at the moment. Part of that's been a function of the slow assay turnaround has meant that some of those costs are spread out over a bit more time, but also we've slightly changed our approach because of that issue, and that's to put our drill programs into these slightly more focused, smaller programs rather than these big, extensive programs, just because of the lag time we had on assay turnaround. So overall, our budgets on $1 per meter drilled is slightly ahead, which is good to see. We have good established relationships with our contractors, which enable us to keep costs under control. But one of the things we aim for, and it's probably remiss of me to not mention it, but we aim industry-wise, everyone aims to get greater than 70% of their expenditure to in-ground expenditure. We're tracking at just over 80%. So 80% of all our costs are in-ground exploration costs rather than sort of overheads, and we're ahead of that at the moment. So that's a key metric for us, that we keep our overheads down and focus most of our money into the ground.
Thanks for clarifying that. And it's good to see, you are ahead. Gateway's been around for a little while now, and we'd get this question a bit here at JP Equity. Do you think, or what would indicate you guys needing to potentially consolidating the shares at some point, like particular milestones, or how do you see that type of thing occurring?
Yeah, look, it does come up, and obviously, as you mentioned, and just the nature of how old the company is, there is a lot of shares on issue, and it's a reality. Consolidation at some point, with the right milestones, sort of step change in the company, definitely makes sense. It's not on the cards at the moment, but yeah, definitely once we get there, where we can really see a step up in the company's activities and it's sort of where it is, then we'll be looking to consolidate. That's for sure. Yep.
Got one more question here, Mark.
Yep.
Well, I've just received through. The company is going around a few different targets. Does that indicate enough work is being done on the existing major targets, Whistler, Evermore, Montague, for resource upgrade, or do you see scope to significantly increase the resource with infill drilling of those targets?
Yeah, that's a good question, that one. I suppose where we're at is we're currently undertaking those resource estimates. So we've done obviously a heap of work there the last 18 months. We've drilled something in the order of 30,000 metres of RC drilling, and about 40 odd thousand metres of air core now. So we're going through that process in the background. Once we've done that, that'll enable us then to look at what's next for those resources. And I sort of mentioned before that, part of our strategy is continuing to grow and add to those existing resources while we're still bringing new ones on. So we're not just focused on those resources. We see the real potential to continue to bolt on these additional new resources over time. But that doesn't stop us, evaluating areas where we can increase and update our existing resources. But at the moment, we're just doing those studies. So really, until they're done, we can't really, look where to go next. But that'll happen for sure. All
right, thanks a lot, Mark. Thanks again for the update today.